What's good, boys? Gonna have another video. Um, Today, this shit's gonna be about SMTs. All right. So first, we gotta talk about what an SMT is and like what the fuck is it, right? So the full name is SMT Divergence, right? And really, we're just looking at the divergence between two pairs that correlate. Okay. So the big reason why I switched mainly from forex and now how I trade more futures is because of this confluence. This shit's like actually like goated as shit. So the reason why you can't do this in forex is because these pairs need to be correlating, right? So for example, GU and GJ, just because like GBP USD and GBP JPY, right? Well, let's say we're talking about those two pairs because those are the pairs that I trade on forex, right? They move differently, right? Just because GBP USD goes up does not mean GBP JPY is going to go up, right? They literally just like do whatever the fuck they want. They're just separate pairs. They're literally completely separate, right? But for ES and NQ, if ES goes up, NQ is going up. Do you see what I'm saying? So these pairs, they correlate in which they and how they move, right? But there's a divergence, meaning like the difference between the two. Okay. So first, how do we spot an SMT, right? So for it to be a bearish SMT, you would be looking at the high of the candle, right? And if it was a bullish SMT, you'd be looking at the lower end of the candle, right? So for ES here, for example, ES could have, let's say we're on the 5 minute right now. We'll be looking at some SMTs on the 5 if I can find any, which I'm sure I will. SMTs are everywhere, and they're goated as shit. So let's say on the 5 minute, ES makes a higher high, right? And then NQ makes a lower high, right? This would be a bearish SMT. Okay. Now, the thing you need to be careful for is that for it to be considered a high, you need to have a red and a green candle consecutively, right? If you just have 3 green candles, right, that's not considered a high. There needs to be the opposite colored candle for it to be considered a high. So what you want to do is verify that this SMT was formed, right, after you see a black candle, right? Once you see that, then you can scale down, hopefully catch the retrace into a fair value gap or into a CISD. Bang, then that's when you enter. Shit. Now for a bullish SMT, you'd be looking at the lower part of the candle, right? So ES, let's say ES can make a lower low while NQ makes a lower high, right? And now this is also vice versa, okay? So for example, ES can make a lower high and NQ can make a lower low, right? Now I know I'm just spitting shit out right now, so this could be a little confusing, but we'll go ahead and hopefully point it out in some charts here. And you can already like kind of tell, so you can see here why I have like my split screen as well, because like when I'm on ES right here, it shows me that I'm on, the time is 13:25, right? And you can see on NQ I have that like dashed line over it that shows me, see how I'm moving it? That dashed line shows me exactly where I'm at the same time for NQ, right? So it makes it really easy to spot SMTs because they have to be at the same time, right? So you can see here, right? On NQ, we took, like you can see here, right? This 13:25 high, we barely took it, right? We barely sweeped it. And then, but on ES, we sweep the fuck out of it. You see what I'm saying? We grab that bitch. So there is a divergence between pairs, and you can use this divergence to be able to take up some trades. So I can see one right now, right? And it's very once you get used to it, it's pretty simple to see. But so you can see right here on this 1435 high, right? This is the high. So with this candle, we make a higher low, right? But then when you go on NASDAQ, same time frames, right? 1435, same as that one. And then this high as well, same thing. We make a higher high, right? So NASDAQ took out this high while ES did not take out this high, right? So this is a perfect SMT. Okay. Now, for example, you would have to wait for this black candle right here, this 1515 candle. You would need for it to close for you to for it to be considered a high, right? So boom, this candle closes, right? What could you possibly wait for? The retrace, catch the retrace, right? So bang, we have a BPR right here. Okay. Same thing for NASDAQ. And what could you have done? Wait for this 5 minute candle to close, scale down, let price come back to this BPR, or you could even just want to retrace this fair value gap, anything really. Retrace back to this. Once we retrace back, you get your entry once you see selling pressure out. So it'd be with this candle right here. Selling pressure here. Stop loss at the high in which you made the SMT with. What do you target? Draws on liquidity. This, for example. And bang, this shit would have hit in literally 15 minutes. Three candles, and we smacked it. Right? And, oh shit. And this isn't like anything hard to spot for real. So we can, let's go ahead and look for a bullish SMT. And just like that, I already found another one. So you can see here, right, on ES, this 1105 candle, we did not sweep it, right, with the 1115 candle, right? Now when you look, so we made a higher low, right? And then when you look on NASDAQ, same candle, 1105, right? We sweep that shit at 1115, right? Which we did not do on ES, right? And we make a lower low. So this would be a bullish SMT, right? So boom, you know, whatever, scale down, catch the 1 minute retrace or catch a CISD. What can you do? Enter. We probably would have entered. We could just say it right there. Stop loss, the reason why we entered. What do we target? We could just say this draw on liquidity right here. Smack that shit once again in like, let's see, 20 minutes. So the shit's goated. Okay, so that's a bullish and that's a bearish SMT. Let's go ahead and just find one more. I do not recommend taking these SMTs off the 1 minute because obviously you don't really want to take any, like you don't want to make your main confluence off the 1 minute because, you know, it is the 1 minute. 1 minute really does not hold as much power as, like, for example, the 5 minute or the 15 minute. I mainly like SMTs on the 5 and 15. I mean, ideally the 5. I really fuck with the 5 minute SMTs because sometimes with the 15 minute ones, it'll take you a pretty fat minute to get some shit in right here. It's barbecue chicken, right? Barbecue chicken. Rahani. All right. So you can see right here, right? Oh, and that's another thing. I would definitely prefer to do these SMTs with kind of like, I'm not a trend line trader. I don't fucking support trend lines, but more of like the trend line, like a prominent high. Like for example, this shit right here, I mean, you could consider that shit a high. You could, right? But that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't want to take, like, for example, we could consider like this little chop work right here. We could consider that a high, right? I don't really like to use SMTs on like those little like bare ass moves. That shit's just not it. It needs to be like a strong, like a draw on liquidity, right? So you can see here on ES, right, with this 1005 candle, right? We sweep it with the 1215 candle, right? Same thing, 1005 candle. What we don't do on NASDAQ is we don't sweep it. Same 1215 candle, right? Bang, bang. You know what I'm saying? Enter that shit. Could have entered on anything really. Whatever the fuck you want to enter off of all the 1 minute. If I scale down, I'd have to refine the chart, so I don't really want to do all that shit. But scale down to the 1 minute, enter off of a CISD, inverse fair value gap, respected fair value gap, break a structure, whatever the fuck you really want. You feel me? Stop loss at the high. What do you target? Draw on liquidity. And holy shit, we would have got edged. And then if you take profit two probably would have been this low, which we eventually did hit, but you would have got stopped out. So take profit 1 though, smacked. Right? Let's go ahead and find one more. Remember, like this shit on the 5 and the 15. Because really your whole move, I wouldn't recommend having your confluence mainly on the 1 minute because higher time frames does hold higher power. I've said that shit before. So yeah. Let's go to this day. What day is this? So Wednesday. Damn, shit looks like news though. And you can see right here, the easy way to spot them is, remember, it needs to be like a kind of a prominent or dominant high, right? I don't really like using them off these, like this is just straight chop work right here. Like, why would I take an SMT off this chop work? So like, for example, I would want to see an SMT off this high, or this high, right? But you can see NASDAQ swept all these highs, and same thing, ES swept all these highs, right? So this is some shit that is just like unfortunate. This might have been news. I don't know. That's a crazy shit, though. Literally shit the bed. Literally shit the bed. Perfect example of an SMT, right? So remember, I'm looking at these prominent dominant highs, right? So you can see right here, bang, what this is the 1045 candle. We do not take out that low on ES with the 1315. Same thing, 1045 candle, then the 1315 shit. We sweep the fuck out of that shit, right? What does that mean? Bam, bearish SMT, because we're looking at the high of the candle, right? So when I'm saying higher high and higher low, that's a bearish. When I'm saying lower low and lower high, that's bullish, right? So when you're looking at the top of the candle, bearish. When you're looking at the bottom, bullish. So bang, SMT could enter off of, once again, scale down to the one. Enter off anything, a CISD, IFVG, respective fair value gap, break a structure, CISD, anything. Bang, let's just say you would have targeted there off this break of structure, off the 5-minute, stop loss at the top of the SMT. What can you target? Draws on liquidity, smack work, and smack work, right? And look at that shit. That's a clean ass trade right there. That is clean as shit. Damn near 6 RR. So yeah, and this is a perfect 5-minute CISD as well. We sweep this high. This would be our change in state of direction. You would have entered right there. Right there. Crazy entry as well. This is just beautiful trade. Absolutely beautiful. Makes me want to nut a little bit. Nut in your mouth, nut in your face. And I did say that shit with a straight face too. We can go ahead. Let's just do one more. Hopefully all that made sense. So we're on this day. Okay. Now on days like this, I mean, look at this shit, bro. We just fucking rip. Like, what the fuck? This is one of those things where it's like, damn, man, like this shit's untradeable. I mean, we might have gotten an, so yeah, we didn't get an SMT here during pre-market. You can see here as well because, this low right here, we took it out. We took out everything except these two lows, this low did not take out this low on both ES and NQ. So, and when shit rips like this, like you really, I mean, unless your bias is strong and you catch it for value gap, ripping days like that aren't really tradable. So there's not much you can really do with that. Shite. Don't see an SMT on this day. Let's check out this day. I mean, you can also really tell this huge divergence. I mean, look at this shit right here. This 1205. Look at that. Like, this is a crazy takeover on NQ. Yes, it's really not. Might have got a bullish one done here. Okay, yeah, we did not. So another way you can really just tell that is because remember we're looking at these prominent lows and these highs. You see right here, NASDAQ did not take out this low. Same thing with the ES did not take out this low. So it's another day where no SMT. This day looks like straight chop work. What day is this? Wednesday. Looks like straight chop cheese, but we do get an SMT and it is very clean. Let's see. So we have this low right here, right? This 955, right? Does not get taken out at 1105, right? 955 here. We do take it out. We take it out good here on ES, right? So this would be our lower low. This would be our lower high. Bang, you'd have to wait for this candle to close to consider this a low, right? We consider this a low. Bang, scale down, enter wherever. Stop loss at the SMT. This is kind of an exaggerated stop loss, so I probably would have put my stop loss at like a 1-minute high, which probably would have been somewhere around that body. Targeted this draw on liquidity. bang, and then TP2 would definitely be that draw on liquidity, and also bang, right? So that's really SMTs. I do not trade without an SMT. If I don't see an SMT off the 5 or the 15, I'm not taking a trade. I don't really like taking them on the hourlies. You can if you would like, but the only thing about them is that sometimes like I'm taking a trade in 1 hour, right? So like, and obviously an SMT doesn't mean we just completely shit the fucking bed, right? That's not what that means. Like you can even see here on the 5 minute, right? We get a bounce up, right? But then we get this 5 minute retrace. Okay. Same thing could happen on the hourlies, right? You could have seen an hourly SMT and you'd be like, all right, bet, let me get my entry. But then it just ended up being an hourly retrace. You get stopped out, and then boom, we go straight to your take profits. So that's why I don't really like fuck with them on the hourlies because of that reason. So I really fuck with them on the 5 and the 15. I don't really use them to determine daily bias or anything like that. But if I don't see one off the 5 or the 15, I'm literally just not taking a trade that day. They are that goated of a confluence. Like absolutely, if I see an SMT, like 90% chance, maybe even higher, that is probably the strongest confluence in the game. It's absolutely goated. I do personally recommend that you really should trade with SMTs. I would just recommend the same thing as me. That's what I do. Now, what you obviously you don't just enter off of an SMT, right? You enter off of an SMT, scale down, and then find more confluence. That's where you can really, cook for yourself, right? You can use whatever you fuck with, CISDs, fair value gaps, inverse fair value gaps, or you can just enter off of a breaker structure. It's really whatever you would like, whatever you fuck with, whatever you see in the markets, right? But that's really it. I hope that shit made sense. Goated ass confluence. Y'all boys better use this shit. Not gonna lie. I don't really like to push confluences on people because obviously other people see things differently. But I do push this confluence because this shit is insane. So good. I do not trade without an SMT. I never take one unless I see an SMT. So, and remember, you have to let the low and the high be formed. That's the key. That's really the key. For example, like we would have caught this trade, right? Literally the next trade, bang right here with these, as soon as market open, these 935 highs, right? We sweep them on NASDAQ. What happens on ES? We don't sweep them. Same time, right? Bang. You have to let a different candle close, right? So for example, we see a white candle and then a black. So we can say red and green, right? So we see a green and then a red, right? You have to let the candle close and be red for it to be considered a high, right? So same thing. So we have this, or sorry, not same thing. I'm tweaking, but this candle closes. So once this candle closes, this is now an SMT. This is now. You can kind of see them forming, right? But you do not want it to, because who knows? Like this candle could be black, right? And then 5 seconds before this candle closes, we get a pump up on ES, right? Let's say we have 5 seconds left on this black candle right here, and then it's black, right? So we're thinking, okay, that's going to be a red candle, and then this can be considered a high, right? And we can use that as our confluence as an SMT, right? But let's say in the 5 seconds right before it closes, boom, we get a rip out and we take out this high, right? Then it's no longer an SMT because we took out the high on NASDAQ, right? We made a higher high and a higher high, not an SMT, right? So you have to let the opposite color candle form, right? Whether it's a bullish or bearish SMT. So for example, this is a bearish SMT, so you would want to see a green candle for this to be considered high. Next candle has to be a red candle. If we had another white candle right here, this would not be considered high. It has to be a white and a red, or a green and a red for it to be considered a high. So we have a green and a red, bang, now this is considered a high. You wouldn't take the trade anywhere in the middle of here. Unfortunately, you would not. Your entry would not be that good because you need to verify that shit's going to be a high. For example, that ES right here is not going to take out this high. So you would get, boom, a bearish candle, bang. Now what do? Eat barbecue chicken. You can literally, you can see this shit right here. It's easy as shit. 5 minute fair value gap on ES. Could have just waited for the 5 minute fair value gap to get filled. Bang. You would have entered literally at the fucking top tick that bitch. Once again, this is a really overextended stop loss, so I don't know if I would want to having a stop this really overextended. So sometimes I'll put the stop loss at the 1 minute high or the 5 minute body, right? So it'd probably be around right there. Or I would actually, I might have even taken it, I might have just put my stop loss at the top of the 5 minute fair value gap, because that's why I took the trade. This is a really tight stop, but we'll see. And obviously, I mean, it doesn't work out. Take profit, probably one would be this BPR. 6 RR, boys. Like, are you kidding me? And then next TP would have been this low. 13 RR. Literally based off of just an SMT and a 5 minute fair value gap filled, right? My stop loss probably would have been at like these 1 minute highs somewhere up here. I'm not going to act like I'm a fucking goat hitting 13 RRs here and there. It probably would have been at like these 1 minute highs or wherever the 1 minute highs would be. So it'd probably be about a 5 RR. But you can see, like, we smacked the fuck out of that shit, right? So, like I said, don't like pushing SMTs on. I don't like pushing really any confluence, but if I were to push a confluence, I definitely push SMTs. Go to confluence. I really do recommend everyone use that in some form or fashion, especially on the 5 minute. 5 minute SMTs, it's goated. Because sometimes on the 15, you can really I just don't really like them on higher time frames. Ideally, I see them on the 5, and then the 1 is just too small. So if I see one on the 15, I'll use it. It's valid. But yeah, that's really it. That's everything about SMTs. If I yap too fast or if that shit made no sense or whatever the fuck, just let me know. And yeah, if that shit was confusing, just text me. I got y'all, boys, and I'll catch y'all later. I'll see y'all.